Hi, hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome.
Benjamin, what's scarier to you, the idea of a kid with powers or the adults trying to control them?
Oh, by miles, the adults. I have to say, Jack and I share this, but we are both much more interested. I mean, we love Stephen King generally, but we're much more interested when he writes about the human monsters than about the supernatural monsters. And I think, adults being the human monsters, particularly as they are approaching kids and figuring out how to use kids. I'm very struck by the fact that certainly every politician on every side of everything claims to be doing whatever they're doing for the kids, and it's all about the kids, and yet almost none of them ever ask the kids, what do you need, what do you want? And I think that is really a big part of our show, is about the kids coming together to help themselves, because quite frankly the adults have dropped that ball.
When Stephen first sent me the galleys, uh, the Parklands massacre, school massacre, had happened. And I remember watching those kids who became a political force, to this day still are, pointing their fingers at the different adults, whether it's their local politicians or the NRA, and saying, get out of our way. You all screwed up. We know how to fix this. Just let us do it. And I went, wow, that's the future. And I felt when Ben and I first came together to work on this, that the idea of children shall inherit the earth, but first they have to save themselves, is pretty much the heart and soul of this show, and rooting for these young people who, luckily in our casting, starting with Joe Freeman and all the other young people, are terrific actors who all feel very real, like you're just kind of hanging out with them. It's a high school show with no high school. It's like empty rooms. They're five kids who are there at this point. And it's very much about putting them in a place and rooting for them to find a way to survive in the world that they're in, which I think can be a metaphor for the world we're all in.
You're so right about it being an empty room, and these kids. There are only five, but they're such a force.
Yes. Good.
It's amazing.
Good.
I guess this is a question for both of you. Whoever, I have 1 minute left. Stephen King has such a distinct voice. Do you ever feel pressure to honor the king, or do you give yourself permission to make bold changes?
Both. I mean, look, we both feel, I don't even know if it's pressure, but we both feel responsibility, certainly, to honor the king and to do right by him, because obviously we both have a relationship with him and have done adaptations in the past. And quite frankly, the fact that he loves this show so much, when you're Stephen King, if you so choose, you can be an executive producer on any adaptation of your work. I mean, that's just something that's in your contract, but he only does it occasionally when he really wants to endorse something. And he's done that with this show, which is just, it's so gratifying. It's such an honor. And it means that clearly we're on the right track. And by the way, he is also very, very honest. I mean, he's been through this so many times, so many adaptations. He's honest about when it doesn't work for him or when it does. And also he's very cool about the idea that, look, his book is his book, and an adaptation has to be its own thing, because if it's too trapped in the book, it's just never going to work on screen. And he's just, in our experience, he's been the greatest partner you could ask for.
Yeah, and he's so enthusiastic about it. And Ben and the writers, we probably don't have time to talk about one of the major changes they made in the story to shrink our world and make it smaller, so that the adults, Ben played brilliantly by Ben Barnes and Mary Louise Parker, are closer in proximity than there are in the book. So there could be the threads that start to weave and connecting them psychically and in reality.
That was the largest departure.
Yeah, that was the largest. But we also cast our kids older. And this happened around first finding Joe Freeman, who, when we saw him, we went, oh my God, We never knew we'd find this kid, but there he is. And casting kids a little closer to the age that Joe reads, which is a tiny bit older than it is in Stephen's book, and around him, I think makes the show less sadistic, number one, which was never our goal, and also allows us to make it more relatable for a young audience. Like, what if that was me? I
No.
would hope I would find people like that that
Oh, wow.
could be my partners.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on the show. You should be very proud of yourselves. I'm loving it. So,
Oh,
Oh,
good.
thank you.
Thank
We
you.
love that you love it.
Yeah, very
Thank you.
much.
Ben,
Hi,
you
Kinsey.
give Haunted and Handsome better than most.
Oh,
Stephen
thank
King
you.
doesn't write light material. What was your first reaction to reading the script, and do you sleep with your lights on now?
I think well, I read the book before I got to the scripts, and it was a really interesting structured book because you're kind of living in Tim's kind of lonely universe for the first few chapters, and then he disappears for about half the book, and you're kind of wondering where he's gone, and it kind of builds this tension of where has he disappeared to? Is he going to help? Is he going to be, be a sort of force for good in the world? I think I was also actively looking to play like a good man with a moral compass, having played a bunch of psychopaths and baddies for the last few years. So it was nice to get back to being the guy who can actually um, be helpful and be on the right side of history. But I got used to not sleeping at all, playing a night knocker, playing someone who kind of only filmed at night for the first month of this shoot. I think I was just trying desperately to turn the daylight off when I got home. I wanted extra curtains and just pillow over the head. I just wanted to turn the lights off, actually.
Well, some melatonin coming your way. Joe, what a great opportunity. You are so incredible. I've seen the Institute described as part Stranger Things, part Firestarter, but it truly is its own beast. Do you see the similarities? And are you a fan of science fiction horror?
Yeah, yeah, I love that genre a lot. Um, and with I also think that we are it's quite a unique show.
Yeah.
There's nothing really. You can make similarities with, kids with special abilities. Of course, that's in Stranger Things. Um, but no, I feel like we definitely have our own identity for sure. Yeah, I haven't because I've seen the show now, and I yeah, I haven't really seen many things like this. It's very dark, but there's also a great light on the other side of it.
Yeah, it's a
That's
very really interesting kind of like slow, tense build to the show. But what I love about Stephen King is if he has something like telepathy, it's probably kind of a metaphor for like how we communicate with each other, in it faced with kind of a authoritative opposition. If there's telekinesis, it's probably about like I don't know, but like to me, it's about like our sort of buried superpowers that we keep, that we don't know the strength that we really have to change things, to literally move things with our thoughts. And so I think Stephen King is like very thoughtful about that stuff. Nothing happens by accident in a Stephen King story.
That is so true. You mentioned this earlier, but I have it written down because I did my homework, Ben. You've mastered the art of playing the villain, but now we finally get to root for you again. Is stepping into the hero role a refreshing change, or do you secretly miss being a baddie?
Do you know what? I spent quite a few years when I was Joe's age. I was kind of boy with sword, for a while, and I think honestly, I sort of struggled as to how I thought I was supposed to just kind of you know kill the dragon and commit to each moment, and that would be enough. And um, I think I struggled with how to make those characters kind of deeply rooted and interesting and exciting. And then I think I went through this freeing change in my life where I just kind of felt like I could play anything. And then suddenly all these these kind of manipulative characters or psychos or troubled characters and all these kind of, untrustworthy characters kind of, came up, and a lot of baddies in a row. And I really then felt you know, once I hit 40, I was like, oh, I want to play a good man. I want to play a guy with a moral compass. I want to play the guy you're rooting for because I want to root for me too. And I think those, you know, it's hard to separate those things. It's so fun to step into being the villain and being the bad guy. And I've been so lucky to have played those characters in a way that people have responded to. But now I want to take what I've learned and apply it to like being the guy that is a force for good in the world and is on the right side of history.
Well, Joe and Ben, I'm rooting for the both of you. Congratulations. It's an incredible show. And I love that I get to talk to you about it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.